Hello, audience of Elisha Space. I'd like to welcome you all with me today. I have Ron Souers with me today. He's known as the ADHD guy. He is an advocate, podcast host, and author who has pretty much given his life, this is his mission, his drive, to empower others with ADHD to embrace their differences and unlock who they truly are. He's also the voice behind the podcast Don't Mind Me, I'm Different. And this podcast dives into experiences of living with ADHD. And he is the author of the Self Discovery Journal for Adults with ADHD. And one more thing I think that's dynamic about him as well is that he also consults with businesses to foster neurodivergence friendly environments and to support employees with ADHD and their needs. So, this dynamic individual, I'm very happy to have you on the show today. Ron, thank you for joining me today at Elisha Space.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And it's an honor. I'm flattered. The one thing
I made you sound amazing.
I know,
You were going to say one thing, though?
there's like a couple things. It's actually your ADHD guy.
I apologize.
I don't know who the ADHD guy is. Hopefully he's better than me in certain ways. And it's Don't Mind Me, I Just Have ADHD. It actually
ADHD.
name of the podcast, but I felt like for people to be able to search it and actually know what it means, I changed it. So no worries.
Okay. All right. Ron, could you share with our listeners a brief overview of your personal journey with ADHD, addiction, self-doubt, and depression? Like what is your journey? What is your story?
So I've spent most of my life not knowing that I was an addict. It took me being homeless for the second time to realize that I needed help and that I had a problem. That journey was tough, but it was what I needed. It helped open the doors to becoming who I am today. That process was difficult, but I had a lot of help along the way. And it helped me to realize that my biggest strength is the people in my life. And it continues to be the people that come in and help me, especially like my mother. It was in that journey through addiction, through recovery that I was able to find out that I have ADHD. And that process was, I was about to lose my job because I injured myself and I kept destroying company property because I was going too fast. I had people in my life telling me I need to slow down. Maybe I need to look into that. Maybe something's going on. And finally, I was able to admit that I needed help there. And that's when I saw my primary care and I told her, I was like, I'm struggling with slowing down. I don't know what's going on. I need help. I'm desperate. And, you know, I basically had to walk her by the hand to the ADHD diagnosis. And, she gave me a list of therapists and psychologists that I could call. And finally, I was able to get hooked up with the therapist that I actually have today. And, that journey has been full of struggles and eye-opening insights and discoveries into myself. And, it's been a wonderful ride. I can't say like, oh, once I found out the ADHD diagnosis, my life was fixed. It's not about being fixed. It's about just getting better each day and being okay with who you are. What I've found through that journey.
I think that's an amazing thing it's a big thing of acceptance and being okay with who you are.
Thank you.
Many people see ADHD as a limitation. What was the turning point for you in recognizing your ADHD traits as potential strengths?
Yeah, for the longest time I felt, I was confused. Like I felt when I got the diagnosis, man, I'm one of those. I'm broken. There was a bit of relief too because there's actually help for it. But I was going into it like I'm gonna get fixed at some
Mm,
point. Like there's an end goal. The biggest thing that helped me was when I was going to get, and I didn't see it at the time, but I was about to get fired again from the same job, the same thing. Like I was driving around in a fork truck and damaging company property. I actually took out a reinforcement pole within the company. Fortunately, they put up with that, but they weren't going to continue to do that. I went back to see my therapist. And during that work, I was really trying to slow down. It was just the distractibility. It was something that I realized this is just something I'm not going to ever be able to control. I can get better with that. And I've learned tools and techniques. So that part, although it was devastating at the time and I felt so much stress, it was like it was such an eye-opening event. I'm actually glad that it happened because I wouldn't be sitting here today talking about what I'm doing, and I wouldn't have put in the research and put in the time to be able to try to figure out what's going on. And I'm still learning.
mm.
I'm still figuring out a lot of different things because it goes deep. And for me, it's like I feel like the information is just all out there. It's just so scattered. And I'm kind of just like collecting it piece by piece and coming up with my own thing that, it may not necessarily fit everybody, but I'm also willing to learn about other people and their journey. And I'm open to new things and trying new things out and seeing if, maybe I could add that on, or maybe what I'm doing right now is, there's a better way.
You had mentioned that the ADHD symptoms contributed to your struggle with addiction. How did you start breaking free from those patterns? Like what types of tools did you learn in order to untangle and become more of your authentic self?
So with the addiction in particular, or like when I was aware of both.
When you became aware that there was some masking going on with the addiction around the ADHD symptoms, how did you start breaking free from that? What was your journey like?
So yeah, there was when I started doing a lot of the research because I wanted to do my podcast and I wanted to be like an instant expert and come into it, and I realized that that's not a thing. It's not about being an expert, it's more about the experience. And reading those books, I was able to see that there was a strong correlation between addiction and ADHD. There's a lot
Mm,
of overlap, especially when it comes to impulsivity. When doing my step work with my sponsor in recovery, a lot of times it would get brought up that I'm impulsive. In the beginning, I was like, that's not true. I'm not and like being impulsive is just meaning there's a thought that pops in my head and I say stuff out of my mouth and or I act right on it without even a single thought going on about the consequences. I don't like pause and look, and there's with my presentation of ADHD, it's impulsive. That's part of the symptoms of it. So I was like, okay, this makes sense why I'm impulsive. I'm not just like this isn't just
there was
like
a
a
name for
character.
it. There's a name for it. Right.
Yeah, it's not just like I'm a bad person.
Or
Like there's
irresponsible or however they want to label it.
yeah. So I was like, okay, that was such a huge insight. And then talking about, I forget exactly the book, but it was just like she talked about, that this emotional dysregulation. So I'm gonna try to break this down as simply as possible, but it's like in most people with ADHD have their executive function. So the prefrontal cortex in the brain is underdeveloped comparatively to a normal brain, whatever that looks like. So it's underdeveloped during birth. So That's the part where, you think about things logically, or you make meetings, or you start to plan, or, those type of things. So the emotional side of the brain is actually overdeveloped and very much sensitive. So whenever something emotional happens, it overrides all of that function. It's like an angry neighbor yelling over the fence, like, you should have known better, or how could you have done that again, or just shouting these instructions out. My brain had to adapt. I need to be able to plan and focus, but I can't remember. I developed this other adaptation of like, okay, this is how you need to remember. I need to yell at you. My brain just feels that way. So it made a lot of sense. That's why and they talk about that too in addiction, in recovery, is they call it inward unmanageability. So it's like I'm unmanageable with my emotions. I'm unmanageable with my thoughts and how I talk to myself. And, I started to practice more mindfulness, and
Mhm.
I started to slow down and look at the stories that I was telling myself, because I didn't like the way that I was talking to myself. I didn't think that it was good, but it's not that easy to just change the way you've been talking to yourself for decades. It was actually one time during when I was meditating and I was feeling depressed about people just weren't nobody was checking up on me saying like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I felt very depressed about that, and my life wasn't worthwhile. And I had learned this meditation, or this mindfulness meditation technique, which was that these stories that we tell ourselves, these narratives, and to look at those narratives as like, so I'm telling myself I'm not worthy, or I'm not, because of this, but I can also challenge that narrative and say, I am worthy because I'm actually sitting here being mindful about this. I'm taking this time for self care. I'm
Right.
doing things that make me, that love me, and like, I was able to see that depression as like there's like a river of thoughts, and this one's like a big boulder in that river. But eventually, that boulder, like if I allow it to become smaller, it's going to pass through that river of thoughts. So it's about analyzing the stories that we're telling ourselves and those narratives, and being able to slow down and see those as like narratives, and being able to question those narratives has been super powerful for me.
It sounds powerful. You've mentioned that hyperfocus has become a powerful tool for your success. Could you give an example of how you harness this trait to your advantage?
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of other strengths. So that's
Right.
one of the practices that I do, is the mindfulness based strengths practice. And that focuses on mindfulness with character strengths and looking at strengths. And I believe that when we start to look at our strengths in a humble, learning way, we can really grow not only ourselves, but strengthen the relationships around us.
I'm big on mindfulness too. So I get exactly what you're saying. Like it forces you to be present and appreciate what you have in the present, no matter what else is going on around you. I'm a big believer in mindfulness because sometimes we are too forward thinking and sometimes we miss the good that's happening in our present life because we're so forward thinking.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great way to put it. And mindfulness shows up in different ways, and it's so plastic when it comes to like the amount of applications that you can
Hmm.
do with it, especially when you add character strengths to that. So I started seeing like the character strengths with the hyper focus. It's like it takes perseverance and resilience to live life in general with ADHD, or any other neurodivergence. So with the hyper focus is like if I'm excited about something like my podcast or the research that I'm doing, I'm going to just really hone in on like, "Oh, I need to read this," and like, or I can sit there for hours and just like on and write out a whole book on something that, I feel passionate about. And since one of my top strengths is love of learning and creativity, those two really just come together. And I can feel like it, especially when
Perfect fit for your podcast, right?
yeah. So it's like my brain lights up when those two strengths are like being utilized. There's a difference between like creativity and curiosity, because
Right.
curiosity is like learning something new, and interested in seeing things in a new way, while love of learning takes that to a deeper level. It's like I want to get better at those things that I'm curious about. All of those three like really come into play when I'm hyper focused.
I think that too, because ADHD overall, there isn't. I've met the most creative people who have had a diagnosis of ADHD. It's like mind blown for me when I see the things that they're able to create. And we touched on the podcast. I'm just wondering how your creativity has been leveraged within your own personal life too.
No, it's I try to be creative as much. I'm actually, I've created some music
Hmm.
in my past, and I grew up wanting to be a film director, and I still think that may happen, but like honestly, this is, I feel like, my purpose,
Right.
and finding that and being creative in how I get those things out. So I've created a journal, a self-discovery journal, that has a bunch of prompts in it, questions that you can ask yourself to go deeper. I actually have it right here. I can
Sure.
So it's, what role do I often play in relationship? The helper, the fixer, the avoider. It's about really taking like, what role do you play in a lot of your relationships? And that could be different for each relationship. Are you just trying to help, or are you just trying to fix it and get it over with? Or do you even avoid it at all costs? So it's about looking at like, okay, what do I do here? And then asking, why is it important that I fill this role? It's just kind of scratching at the surface of like
Right.
what can
It's
happen.
encouraging that exploration.
Well, yeah, and figuring out like, because I'm still learning who I really am, but I had to like ask those questions, like, like with that story, that why am I telling myself I'm not good enough? And there's usually like a core wound. There's some trauma underneath all of that. So it's like I really like to explore that trauma and learn about where it's coming from. And Dr. Gabor Mate is actually a great influence of mine. Is how he ties in addiction and ADHD and trauma, which is like, it's really talking my language in such an unorthodox way. And it's incredible, like, because for me, the core wound of my trauma is I wasn't, held or hugged a lot by my dad. Like, I wasn't, there was a lot of emotional neglect. And I understand that it came from the way that he was raised.
Right.
So
It was
there's,
generational. Mhm.
yeah, and I spent a long time hating my father because he wouldn't be proud of me. I would try so hard and I would never get that. Honestly, there was a couple of times when I graduated high school, he actually gave me a hug. When I went into recovery, he actually said he's proud of me multiple times. But at that point, it didn't have the significance. When I was in high school, yeah, it was huge. But it was like now that I've come, it's like I've been able to see him more as a person than as this father figure that I can't break down and see him as a normal human being.
It's
And
amazing to me how, as we go through our own healing journeys, because really what you're talking about is your healing journey, your story of your healing journey, how even the perceptions of how we see things or people in our lives or the roles people played in our lives shifts and change as we evolve into a more healthier person. Because now you're realizing, okay, well, there's a reason around why he did what he did. And you're beginning to see him more as a person, which helps you to accept him for who he is a little bit better, wouldn't you say?
yeah, I try to reach out to him because I realize I would like to have that, but I also understand that he's just not there.
Right.
So it's a balancing act of like,
Absolutely.
and giving myself permission to be okay with like grieving or feeling sad about that relationship, not being there because it's only really hurting him more than anything else. And I
Hmm.
just see him as trapped in this cage of isolation, and because I've been there and it's a personal hell.
Right.
And a lot of people are living in that. That's why I want to help people and, basically dedicated my life to helping people. And that's why I have my coaching program, which I help guys that are 40 and over who struggle with addiction, ADHD, and depression. And I help them break through that isolation so that they can become more pro social, so they can build stronger, more meaningful relationships, reclaim their confidence, and finally feel seen and supported. Because it's about unlocking the version that's always been there. Because I know, because it unlocked so much in me by, talking about what's really going on with anybody. It really started in when I was, trying to get people to see, at my job, like, hey, I'm doing this. I have ADHD. And there was so many people that opened up about their ADHD that it was just mind blowing. At first, I was like, well, how can you say you have ADHD? I'm supposed to be special.
Hmm. Hmm.
But at the end of the day, when I started, I was like, no, they have ADHD too. Like, this is a great point to be able to connect on that, especially with depression. Being able to talk about my depression has been very freeing and very healing because when you keep all these emotions and feelings inside, it can cause so much stress on your body, on your nervous system, and you end up like it's going to come out at some point,
It's
and
very true.
it's probably going to be in a way that you can't control. When you let it out in your way that you're comfortable with and you
Hmm.
become more comfortable with, it gives you such empowerment and confidence.
Ron, looking back, what advice would you give to your younger self at the height of your struggles with ADHD, addiction, and depression? What would you tell yourself?
I would just say it's okay. Like, it's okay. It's okay to be who you are. It's okay. And I know it's going to be difficult for you to accept this, but you're lovable. You're worth a better, like you have so much strength in you and you don't have to believe it. You just got to believe that I believe it,
Thank you.
and
That's powerful. Could you, if someone wants to get in contact with you, how can they get in contact with you? And would you like to share more information about your podcast as well as the books you've written?
yeah, definitely. Thank you. If somebody wants to get in contact with me, giving away the free gift, which is my self discovery journal right here. You can get the copy of that. That's going to be on youradhdguy.com. It's right at the top. And if you want to you're interested, I have a free discovery call, and we'll talk about where you want to go, if I'm a good fit, and you can find that at yourdguy.com as well. And if you really like, listening to my voice and you want to hear more tips, and I have this ADHD and trauma series going on right now, so you should check that out at my podcast. It's called Don't Mind Me, I Just Have ADHD.
I love that. Don't mind me. I just have ADHD.
Thank
And
you.
we've already become fast friends. I think we're just going to do another collaboration. I'm not sure. But whatever we're going to do, it's been fun, right, Ron? I
Yeah,
definitely
definitely.
enjoy working with you and having you on the show. I know that he had me on his show to talk about some things as well. And we just hit it off really well, audience. So I definitely am suggesting that Ron is a safe person to listen to. When I listened to his podcast, I only heard positive, nourishing, encouraging things that would help you in your healing journey. So if you're dealing with some things around the topics and areas of neurodivergence, I definitely will encourage you to consider that. And you also have a Facebook page, right? Is that
Yes.
correct? We're going to talk about that too. Or your
Yeah,
TikTok.
it's,
He's all over
I
y'all.
mean, you,
Go ahead.
I know I'm on TikTok so yeah, you can find me, Ron Souers, on Facebook. There's the Kindness Circle Facebook page, which has, some great members in there and some encouraging posts. And if you need to talk about, what you're struggling with, you can come there. I also have the Kindness Circle live on TikTok Saturday nights. Definitely follow me on TikTok. It's at ron.solo1. That's another great resource. Yeah, I just had, was on there last Saturday, and there was this girl Care Bear, and she really, it was a powerful conversation, and I get a lot out of it too.
Don't you learn so much from doing this podcast? It's amazing to me.
Yeah,
I feel like I've
and
become a
talking with
better
people.
person just from doing the podcast. So just meeting
Yeah,
awesome people.
no, I actually did an interview with my mom for
I
one of
did
the
an interview
episodes.
with my mom too.
Oh, it's crazy. I'm a
No.
mama's boy.
Yeah.
I don't mind admitting it. She's always been there for me. She's the only one that's ever always believed in me, always supported me. She's my rock.
Yeah. Same here. Moms are super
Awesome.
are I view them as like super, like how you have Superman and all those, those
Yeah,
characters.
they're
That's how I view
mama
my
bears.
mom. Yeah,
There's no one stronger. They got to
absolutely.
raise up these strong men and women.
Right.
A lot of them don't have the support that they need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always tell people my mom is one of my superpowers. Well, I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for my mom. That's the truth. So, all right. Audience, we are at a point, unfortunately, as you can see, Ron and I have a great dynamic and we could talk forever, but we have to wrap up the show. So when I'm talking with you, I really want you to hear the conversations around mindfulness. I want you to hear the conversations about being present and how even within his journey of of even within his own healing journey, he boldly addressed what he needed to address in order to get to a stronger place. My hope is that you'll take whatever it is that you need to take and grasp onto it with all your might and move forward within that, within your own healing journey. I thank you for joining us today and for allowing us to share this space at Elijah Space with you. Take care. and we look forward to seeing you on the next show.
Thank you.